This is the lesson on hyperbolas. This is worksheet 7. Everybody ready to go? Yeah, I wanted to remember, guys, does anybody want the little application for peer tutoring? You get hours for NHS, or you get to put it on scholarships or anything. They're looking for math people to do algebra 2 or geometry. They're up here if you want to grab one. It's on your schedule. Before or after school, if you're available, whatever. I think it's supposed to be at school. All right. Hyperbolas are this shape when we did conics. They're the slice that's perpendicular to the base, so you get two separate U-shaped things going opposite directions here. They have asymptotes, okay? A use of them, this is kind of complicated, but it says, when there's a lightning strike, two sensors detect a signal at slightly different times and generate a point on a hyperbola where the distance from each center is proportional to the difference in the time of the arrival. The sensors then make it possible to transmit the exact location of the lightning strike. Okay, so remember when we did on the backboard, the definition of an ellipse was the sum of the difference from any point on the ellipse to each focal point was the same. The string stayed the same. This is more complicated in my brain. This is the difference between any point, the distance from any point on the hyperbola to one focus minus the distance from that to the other focus. That is a constant. Okay, so it's more complicated in my little brain to come up with what that means. Yeah, no, not really, but all right. So what we need to know, Ed, is that it's two U-shaped thingies, okay? And we're going to basically think about it as though we're drawing an ellipse. And then instead of drawing the ellipse, we're actually going to draw what's called an auxiliary rectangle. And then we're going to draw the diagonals of that rectangle. Let me see if I have a picture here. Here's the rectangles. And once we've done all that, then we're going to put the U's in between those asymptotes. All right. The transverse axis here is going to be the one that goes like an axis of symmetry through the middle. The conjugate axis is also actually an axis of symmetry going this way, but it doesn't actually go through the hyperbolas. Okay? So the transverse axis has a length of 2a, it says here. That's important when we go to write equations tomorrow. The transverse axis is the one that's going through the actual ones, and the conjugate axis is perpendicular to that and has a length of 2b. All right, the auxiliary rectangle is what some books call this, and that's based on the A and the B. What you need to know here, everybody paying attention to this slide? Everybody got their pink sheet handy? Okay. What makes this an ellipse and not a hyperbola is that right here in the middle, instead of a plus, is a minus. Okay? And you remember an ellipse had a plus here, but the ellipse also had an a squared and b squared that could flip around based on what? What decided how something was a or b with an ellipse? The bigger number was a, right? The bigger number was a. That is not true for a hyperbola. Okay? A is always underneath whichever one is first or positive here. A is under X on this example, and A is under Y on this example. x minus h being positive indicates that the hyperbola opens in the around the x-axis or in that orientation, okay? It can shift up and down, so it's not actually around the x-axis. The y being positive out here in front indicates that it opens up and down. The u's open up and down around the y-axis direction, okay? But the a can be smaller than the b. It has nothing to do with size. It has to do with which one is under the positive. All right, the things you're going to have to give me when you do this, you're going to have to state the center unless it's the origin. You're going to have to do the vertices and the foci. Okay? The vertices are going to be the ends of the rectangle when we draw the rectangle in here. Okay, the vertices are going to be the ends of the rectangle that indicate which direction it's opening as well. The foci are inside the u's, just like a focal point of a parabola. Everybody with me? Inside the u. Therefore, this relationship is different than yesterday. I tried to preview this for you yesterday. Whoops. Remember I said if this is a minus in here, we're going to actually add a squared and b squared to get c squared. Yesterday when we had a hyperbola, when we had a ellipse, when it was plus in here, remember this? You actually did a squared minus b squared to get c squared for an ellipse. Does that look familiar to anybody? Okay. Today, when it's a minus in the middle, to get c squared, you're going to do plus. Yeah, it's down at the bottom there. Do you see it? Okay. So the sign switches. All right. And the final thing you have to find is you have to be able to find the asymptotes. And the thing that's tricky about the asymptotes, first of all, this equation look familiar? Point slope? Okay. Ours is going to be y minus k. That seem okay? And x minus h. That seems easy. All right. The slope here is tricky. If you look at the pink sheet, look what it says. This one says b over a and this one says a over b. That seems really confusing. It's really easy if you remember the definition of slope. Slope is change in y over change in x, yes? Okay, so whatever is underneath the y, that goes on top of whatever's under the x. So it's b over a for this one, and for this one it's a over b. Just remember it's change in y over change in x. So this is going to be change in y over change in x. It's either a over b or b over a. It's not a squared over b squared. Okay, you do have to square root that, but and then it's plus or minus. All right, I'm going to do an example for you, and then we'll do one together. So just watch and see if this makes any sense at all. Is this a or b? How do you know? Okay, it's under the positive one. So a is 3. This is b, and b is 5. How do we find c? You're right. The center is at 0, 0. C, as in to find the focus, c squared equals, instead of a minus in the middle here, so we end up doing what? Yes, 9a squared plus b squared. The 9 is already a squared, so it's 9 plus 25 equals 34. So c is the square root of 34. All right? What does that mean? Well, this 3 was underneath the y, so it means on the y I go up and down 3. On the x, there was a 5, so I go out 5. Now, if it was an ellipse, I'd just draw through those vertices and covertices. But instead, I have to draw the auxiliary rectangle through those. Let's see if I can use my technology here. There's my rectangle that goes through those. Okay. And then I draw in the asymptotes of that. Not very well, but we'll pretend. It's trying to go through the corners. Okay. So this is the setup, but now where do I actually draw the hyperbolas? This one had y was positive. Okay, that means it opens around the y-axis. Means this is actually a vertex, and this is the other vertex. So the vertices are at 0 plus or minus 3. All right, let's go back to this just so you can see I'm not making this up. When it has the y is positive, it's this one, and the vertices are at h, comma, k plus or minus a. Well, guess what? H and k are both 0 on this one, so it's just plus or minus a. Is that what I did? Plus or minus a? Okay. And then it does open here, and mine's not looking very good. It's supposed to be a smooth curve, not touching the asymptotes, something like that. Okay, I have the vertices. What are the other, and the center? What are the other two things I have to do? Foci, which would be at, center's at 0, 0. C is the distance, always, guys, always, 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 from the center to the focus point. How far is that? Yep. So square root of 34 is just under 6. So somewhere out here, close to 6, is a focus point. So it's at 0, comma, plus or minus square root of 34. Everybody all right? And then the asymptotes. Is there an H and a K on this? Just 0, right? Goes through the origin. So these two lines go through 0, 0, but they have a slope. Look at the picture. How far up and how far over did I go? Can you tell? Up 3 and over 5. Remember I said it's change in y over change in x? 3 over 5. So it's y equals plus or minus 3/5 x, because it goes through the origin, so there's no h and k. All right, let's try this one together. It says y squared over 16 and x squared over 4. Sorry, it's not very clear on there. So what do you know? A is how much? That's a squared. Yeah, be careful. A squared is 16, so a is 4. B squared is 4, so b is 2. Want to find c while we're at it? Remember, it's a squared plus b squared, so it would be 16 plus 4 square root of 20, or 2 square roots of 5. All right, what is a, this 4, telling us? 4 which way? 4 up and down, because it's underneath the y. So 4 up and down. Under the x is a 4, which means 2 is our b value, so we go out 2 either direction. From the origin, it's not always going to be from the origin, but for this question, the center was just at the origin. There's my auxiliary rectangle, which is not actually part of the graph. Neither are the asymptotes. We just draw them as guidelines, okay? Everybody doing okay so far? Not lost anybody yet? So instead of drawing an ellipse, we drew a rectangle and we drew in the diagonals. If you want rulers, they're on the wall over there. All right. Then we draw the ellipse. Where do we draw the ellipse? This one had a y squared again, right? That was positive here. So we have to draw it around the y-axis. In the very top of the rectangle, whoops, not supposed to touch the asymptote. That point at the top of the rectangle is the vertex. So what was the name of that point right there at the top of the rectangle? We went up and down how much, guys? 4. So how do you say up and down 4? 0 plus or minus 4. The center was at 0, 0. Okay, did we already find the foci as well? It says h comma k plus or minus c, but if this is 0 and this is 0, we just have 0 plus or minus c, which was 2 square roots of 5, or like 4.5. Okay. So if we want, this is actually already up 4, it would be just inside there that the foci would be. All right, and the asymptotes, they always seem tricky, but they're not really that bad. This is through 0, 0 is our center. So we just need a slope. What was underneath the y over what's underneath the x? Yep. 4/2 is the slope, which is 2. So we just have y equals plus or minus 2x. Does that seem okay? Went through the origin, up 2 boxes over 1, right? Seems all good. Is there one more easy one maybe? Okay. What's going to be different this time? It's going to open sideways. Can you try this one on your own? This time B is bigger than A. Does that matter? Nope. Okay, it matters that the X is what's positive, so we're going out 5 that way. And 6 up and down. So then instead of drawing an ellipse, I draw a rectangle, and I draw in the diagonals. Yes, Sayana. No, but you have to draw the rectangle, or the, no, but you have to, bleh, sorry. No, but you have to draw the asymptotes. Yes. I think that's going to be harder than you think when we get to the ones that aren't centered at the origin. And sometimes the slope is going to be like square root of 10 over 2. So if you just drew the rectangle, then putting in the asymptotes is easy. Okay? Yes?
Did you say that the lines were perpendicular?
If I did, I was wrong.
Okay, because that's what I thought I heard you say that, but then I started thinking, how could it be a rectangle?
Yep, the lines are not perpendicular. Nope. They're intersecting. I don't know what I said. I apologize if I said that. All right. This one, you definitely could have just drawn the asymptotes. The problem is going to be when the center is not at the origin. It's going to be a lot harder than you think to just draw the asymptotes in. All right. Which way is this opening again? So where are the vertices? Be careful. I think it's 5, 0, Getty, right? Because it's on the x-axis. You good? That's totally something I would do, by the way. I always write those backwards. Okay, those aren't the worst ones I ever drew. What else do we need? Well, I guess we could have said the center is at 0, 0, but that's kind of understood. What else am I missing? The foci. How do we find those? Okay, so we take a squared plus b squared equals c squared. 25 plus 36 is 61. So c is square root of 61. And that's almost 8, isn't it, guys?
Yeah.
Square root of 61 would be almost 8, so it's out here. Whoa! What did I do wrong? It's totally on the wrong axis, right? They belong inside the U's, as I said earlier. There we go. Close to 8. All right, last thing I need to do. Yes. And they are y minus k and the slope and x minus h, which is also 0. So basically it's just y equals something x, because there's no shift. They go through the origin. What's the slope? Yes, what's under the y over x? Y over x. So it's 6 over 5 plus or minus. Nice job, Kitty. All right. We okay so far? Okay. Now they get a little more complicated. Nothing we can't handle, but they're no longer what? At center at the origin. So this one has a center where? Be careful, I tried to do this one wrong. This is y minus k and x minus h, right? So the center is at -2, +3. -2, +3. That's the center. Okay. From there, where do I go? Up and down 5. Nicely done. Okay. And sideways, how much? Left and right, 3. There's my rectangle. Ah! Don't want another rectangle, I want a line. Sorry. Whoa. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What did I just do? I was trying to straighten that out, but I moved the whole graph. Is it still about the right spot? I think so. All right. Which way do I draw this time? Okay, the y is first. It's positive. So these are my vertices here and here. Those were up and down from the center. How much? Those were up and down 5 from the center. Guys, where's the... What's up and down? Do I add them to the x's or the y's? Up and down 5 would mean I have -2, 3 plus or minus 5. Please don't write it like that. When it's whole numbers, we can do this. We get -2, 8, and -2, -2. Is that right? Does that seem like where those green dots are? And those are the vertices. Right, what am I still missing? Okay, the foci are at 25 plus 9 is 34. C equals the square root of 34. And which do I add that on to? The y value of the center again. So I get -2, 3 plus or minus the square root of 34. which is roughly, this is about 6, so I get about 9. And 3 minus 6 would be -3. Those are just estimates. You can do decimals to get a better picture of where those foci are. All right, the asymptotes. I have good news and bad news. You have to do them. I'm going to let you leave them in a really simple format. It's y minus k, which is exactly what was up here, right? Y minus 3 equals the slope, which is what's under the y over what's under the x. So I get what? 5 over 3. And then it's x minus h, which it said right up there was just x plus 2. And I'm going to be really nice and let you leave it in that form. You can, but if you're going to solve it for y, you're going to have to distribute 5/3 once. And then you're going to have to distribute -5/3 another time. I think that's right. It doesn't seem right. Oh, it was supposed to be plus, so this should have been 13/3. No, 19/3. See, I can't even do it right. It means you'll probably be better at it than me. -5/3 minus 10/3 plus 3. I don't know. I think that's right. I don't want to do all that. Okay? All right, so work on this one. See how it goes for you. Kind of watch your neighbor, make sure you don't do anything totally wrong. I like to write x minus h and y minus k up here. Where your diagonals are not going through the origin this time, they're going through the center, right? Which way am I drawing this guy? Okay, so these are my vertices over on the sides. Okay, and I didn't draw that well at all. It should be getting closer and closer to the asymptote, and it's not. All right. Anybody have the vertices written down? I take 1, -2, and add the x of 4. Since it went out, it would be on the x. So 5, -2, and -3, -2. That seems right. Good job. Foci is ugly, so you're welcome to leave it. You're adding 2 square roots of 31 onto this 2 square roots of 13. I don't know what I just said. Onto the x, so 1 plus or minus 2 square roots of 13, comma -2. If we did decimals, just so we could tell, I got 8.2. And -6.2. All right. Asymptotes, anybody do those? Okay, the y plus 2 and x minus 1. And then your slope was change in y over change in x, which was 6 over 4, which would reduce to 3/2. And it should be plus or minus. Perfect. Anybody lost? Ayana, are you kind of seeing where the rectangle helps on one like that? Yeah, I wouldn't want to have to draw those asymptotes out by hand without the rectangle. All right. The rest of this is on completing the square again. It says, remember when you have the sum of 2 squares, you get an ellipse. When you have the difference of 2 squares, you get a hyperbola. You can also get a circle or a parabola. How would you know it was a parabola? One of the variables is squared and one is not, right? Like an x squared and a plain old y, or a y squared and a plain old x. How would you know it's a circle?
The squares added and they equal.
Perfect. Both squared, added together like an ellipse, right? But the coefficient is either the same or it's both 1 when you divide it out, whichever. But it's not stretched further one way than the other. Okay? All right. So, what do you want to guess for 16? Okay. But you have to be able to write it in the right form, guys. If you're still struggling with this, completing the square twice, please ask so that I can help you. Because this is on the quiz, and so is eccentricity, which we should talk about again real quick. I'm going to rearrange these. And make it equal to 0. And I guess this one didn't have any coefficients, so I could have put in my blanks. Anybody get this one? Y plus 3 squared. And what do you want to say that one is? Do we need to divide by 9 to make it equal 1? No, we could, but there's no coefficients out here other than 1. So it's just a circle. And where's the center? 2, -3, and the radius is 3. So if we drew a really tiny little sketch, we'd go over 2, down 3, and it would go out 3 all the way around. All right. On ones that have coefficients other than 1, you have to factor that out. I'm going to first move the x's all together. and the y's all together, and the constant to the other side. Now, out of these x's, I need to take what? So I will have 9x squared plus 54 divided by 9 is 6. I need to leave a blank. What do I take out of the y's? That's supposed to be a 4, yeah. And then I have over here equals negative 49 plus a couple blanks that I don't have room for. All right. This one, half of 6 is 3 squared is 9. Do I put a plus 9 on the other side? Be careful. There's a 9 out in front, so I added 9 nines or 81 to this side. I'm going to write 9 times 9 just so you're sure where that came from. And then y plus half of this 2 is a 1. Squared is a 1. So what am I adding to the other side this time? 4 ones or 4. So negative 49 plus 81 plus 4. I'm going to take a wild guess that it's 36, yes? All right. Now, am I done?
Nope.
If I have unequal coefficients here, or actually any coefficients, I really should divide and make it equal to 1. So I need to divide everything by 36. So 9 goes into 36 4 times, 4 goes into 36 9 times, and over here 36 over 36 is 1. All right, since some of you, I'm guessing, haven't even started your homework on this, what is this?
What's that?
An ellipse whose center is where? Negative 3, negative 1. And is it longer up and down or across?
Longer up and down.
The bigger number is under the y. So it goes up and down 3 and across 2. Either way from the center. Everybody all right?
Yes.
All right. I want to skip one. You can try this one on your own in a minute and see what you get. But let's talk about 19. Anybody see why I might want to talk about this one?
Because it's negative.
Yeah, the negative is the issue. We're going to have to factor out that negative. Okay? So first of all, I'm going to put the x's together and the y's. And move the negative, or the 112 over their side, make it negative. All right, now, what do I have to do here? Okay, factor out 16, which will leave me x squared plus 6x plus blank. But here, even though there's not a coefficient shown, I have to have a positive 1 when I go to complete the square, so I need to factor out a negative 1, which will make this y squared what? Minus 8y plus blank equals negative 112 plus blank plus blank. Okay. This one, half of 6 is 3, squared is 9. I don't know what 9 times 16 is, but I'm just going to write it over here anyway. Minus y minus half of 8 is 4. Squared is 16. Negative 1 times 16 actually means I'm putting what over here? Yep. Negative 16, or negative 1 times 16. Okay. 144 and negative 128. What do we get? 48?
Yeah,
16? Okay. That sounds better. Everybody okay? What is this because of the minus? Hyperbola. And we're gonna divide everything by 16. So the proper form will say x plus 3 squared over 1, which you wouldn't have to write the 1, minus y minus 4 squared over 16 equals 1. So it is a hyperbola. Its center is where? Yep, HK is at negative 3, 4. If I sketch that, I go left 3 and up 4. From there, I would go only 1 in either x direction, but 4 in either y direction. So there's my little rectangle. Which way is this one opening, though? X is positive, so it opens around the X, which would be sideways. Everybody okay? Boy, I can't draw that. Anyway, it's going that way. Do you need me to talk about the asymptotes and foci one more time since it's a hyperbola or not? You would add and get square root of 17, and those would be added onto what? The X of the center. So we'd have negative 3 plus or minus square root of 17, 4 for the foci. And the asymptotes, anybody? Y minus 4. X plus 3. And the slope is, careful, yeah, you got to square root those, so it's plus or minus 4. Igor, you got this. Oh, nice. All right, guys, this is the assignment. There's just 7? I thought there was only 6, but there's 7 of these to graph. I think they're all graphs. I can't remember for sure. This says start worksheet 9 because that was my original intention, but since I'm going to make the homework check Friday, I'm going to make 9 due on next homework check. It's all kind of an overview anyway. So don't worry about 9 till this weekend. You can work on 9, okay? For tonight, make sure you are all the way through all of this because tomorrow we're going to talk about writing equations of hyperbolas, and it is on Friday's homework check. So you're only going to have one day to do that assignment. Tomorrow's Thursday. Today's Wednesday, right? Me too.